What if the reason you're losing hope is because you're about to quit in the middle of the story? The truth is, Abraham almost gave up waiting. Joseph had every reason to become bitter. Daniel faced a situation that should have killed him. Yet all three witnessed miracles that changed their lives forever. Today, we're uncovering three powerful Bible stories that prove one life-changing truth. No matter how impossible your situation looks, God never fails. First story, Abraham and the promise that took years. Imagine God making you a promise so big it changes your entire future. That's exactly what happened to Abraham. God told him he would become the father of many nations. There was only one problem. Abraham and his wife Sarah had no children. Years passed. Then more years. Nothing happened. The promise seemed impossible. Abraham grew older. Sarah grew older. Humanly speaking, it was too late. But God wasn't limited by human timing. At the age of 100, Abraham finally held the son God had promised. What looked impossible became a miracle. Because when God makes a promise, he keeps it. Lesson: God's delays are never God's denials.
Second story, Joseph in the prison. Joseph had dreams from God, dreams of greatness. But instead of a palace, he found himself in a pit. Instead of honor, he was sold into slavery. And instead of freedom, he ended up in prison. Can you imagine how confusing that must have been? Joseph had done nothing wrong, yet life seemed to get worse. Day after day, month after month, year after year. But while Joseph was waiting, God was working. What Joseph couldn't see was that God was arranging every detail behind the scenes. Then, one day, everything changed. Joseph was brought out of prison and placed in a position of authority over Egypt. The prison was never the end of his story. It was preparation for his purpose. Lesson: when you can't see God's hand, trust his plan. Third story, Daniel in the lion's den. Daniel was faithful to God. He prayed regularly. He obeyed God faithfully. Yet his faithfulness led him straight into danger. Enemies plotted against him. The king was tricked.
Before we continue, if you're growing in faith through these messages, subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a new video. And Daniel was thrown into a den full of hungry lions. Humanly speaking, there was no escape. It looked like the end. But during the night, God sent an angel. The lions couldn't touch him. The next morning, Daniel walked out alive. Not because he was strong, but because God was faithful. The same God who protected Daniel is still watching over his people today. Lesson: no situation is too dangerous for God to deliver you from. Notice something about all three stories. Abraham had to wait. Joseph had to suffer. Daniel had to face danger. But in every situation, God showed up. Not always immediately, not always the way they expected, but he never failed them. And he won't fail you either. The prayer you've been praying, the breakthrough you've been waiting for, the burden you've been carrying, God sees it all. He has not forgotten you. The Bible says, "Let us hold unswervingly to the hope we profess, for he who promised is faithful." Hebrews 10:23. If God kept his promises to Abraham, if he remembered Joseph, if he protected Daniel, then you can trust him with your life too. Because circumstances may change, people may disappoint you, but God never fails. If this message encouraged you, subscribe for more Bible stories, prayers, and Christian encouragement. And remember, God has never failed before,
and he isn't about to start with you.